Welcome to the episode. Nick and I got so excited to talk about golf and everything that we're doing in this space for training that we totally went 9 minutes before even introducing the podcast. So sit back, relax, and listen to some of the amazing things that we're doing in the golf world. Like, don't worry about it. We have this done. This is the perfect program for you. You're the exact person that I made this program for. I was like, I have torn labrums, I have arthritis in both of my knees, I have all this stuff. This is first tested on me and then rolled out to the masses. And now it's starting to be picked up by everybody from, people trying to qualify for the US Open or a long drive to now a PGA professional that needs it. And he's like, my agent's so excited. My girlfriend is so excited. They're all like, this is the piece that you've been missing. Like, you're not doing anything like that. And I was like, we're going to figure out your diet. And we're going to test out different diets to keep you mentally strong on the course and your energy level the same. The lunges are going to keep you so that you're fresher on Sunday, because you're talking about you get tired by the end of the weekend. That's not going to be a thing anymore. We're going to approach it from every single area where it's like you're going to come into these things and be just your best. I'm going to get him on metabolic fast track.
Let's go.
And in a way of eating where he's sustained and running in a way where he can think and not have to be worried about hammering food all the time on the course.
Yeah.
You're not running on glycogen for energy and just going through crashes and peaks and crashes and trying to maintain that level of fucking insulin in your body at all times. We're like, let's treat this as a mental sport like it is. Make it so your body's recovering at a rate where it really doesn't matter from preparation, and then make it so like we can just tweak how you're eating on the weekend. So like you don't have to worry about it if you have a morning or a night tea time. We'll just split your 2 meals into 4 meals and have you eat that, and then you can have your carb spike at nighttime before you go to bed to fuel you for the next day. But you're not going to be. It's just going to help you sleep better, and it's just going to be perfect. And he's just like, oh my god, this all sounds. I was like, it's all been thought out on such a meticulous level that like if we can just get people to follow the blueprint.
Follow the beast blueprint, baby.
Yeah, dude. But this everything that I've put together bombs away to the way that I eat, to all this other stuff. Like a lot of it's been rooted in I can use it to get better at golf, but then also maintain a physique where I can sell personal training.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait. I can't wait to get involved on the mental side of this game. I think we can have so much fun.
But he wants to take us out, and I was like, I don't even know how Nick does this, but like, give him like 5 minutes of your time with some of these things that you're saying are ailing you, and they'll just be gone. It's like, I'm not even going to pretend to understand it.
I'll work my magic.
Well, just be like, now you've used your guided healing techniques on a PGA Tour professional that's been riddled by, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man, we could have those shoulders fixed real quick.
That, and I think he had like a Greek tweak in his groin or something like that. That's better now. But I'm just like, no, that's do 5 minutes of lunges a day for a year, and you'll never have those problems again. Your body's going to heal so fast, especially when you mix in all the mobility that we have. Right? We're going to be strong and flexy, baby. Strong and sexy, strong and flexy.
I love it.
Let's go. No, it fired me the fuck up.
Let's get me pumped up.
Right? I mean, just the opportunity. Like the opportunity. Because he's like, hopefully this will be worth some money someday. And this is where you're rubbing off me. I'd be like, it will be. I'm already framing it and putting it on my wall. I was like, it doesn't matter. He's like, he's like, my goal is to be the #1 in the world. And I was like, hell yeah, that's your goal. And I was like, when you win this year, because he's like, I'm preparing for next year and I only have a couple things this year. I was like, well, what happens when we win this year? Are we still preparing for next year? You know, it's going to be sick.
I'm so pumped. This is going to be so much fun.
Because we are going to win.
Oh, hell yeah. This is the coolest thing I've experienced in working with very varying varying performance levels with athletes, where you would expect to see the biggest improvements being our younger athletes or athletes that are just starting to get in to like adding this new piece to their their lifestyle, whether it's the nutrition or the training or both. But where I've been having the most fun and seeing the most improvement is actually with our most elite athletes. Because typically at that level, research and science kind of suggests that your ability to progress physically is somewhat capped as you're reaching your genetic cap. And the coolest piece has been there has been exponential improvement replicated for every athlete at every level, and especially at that highest level.
Well, at the highest level, they already know what they're training for, and they're already performing those movements at such a high level that now doing exercises that make that better, make it exponentially better. With the golf swing, I do see swing speeds jump up a lot more for like the weekend warrior type because they're already so slow and they don't use the power or the ground for power.
Yeah.
Well, so now we're teaching them these things and then it jumps up. But I'm telling you, from fucking 90 to 100 swing speed is a lot less what's it called? Impressive than 130 to 135. You know what I mean? It's that's the same thing as a 20-pound jump for those guys. Like they get these results in a week, but like in terms of like exponentiality, like it's so much harder to get fast when you're already really fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've almost found it I'm excited to experience more of that, but I almost found like the inverse for them. Like with Liam and Haley, probably the best examples because we have the most opportunity to get very creative in the way that we apply these different things. But seeing how where they are in for both of them respectively, seeing their performance metrics improve significantly from each 3-month block that we've done. You would expect it after the first one. So like the first time getting to work with Haley, like we took her like that very first summer, I think she was around 275 for squats.
Mm-hmm.
And we stuck with obviously doing the box squats. But then we progressed that all the way up to it's 425 is the max we could put on with all of our plates. And with the blue band, rep that out for 2 sets of 4 before going to Worlds in that August. So that was a 3-month time frame, and we only there was a 2 and 3 week block that we missed getting to work together. And she actually brought the bands with her when she was traveling. So when she got back, it wasn't any loss in that type of performance, and actually it continued to increase.
Yeah.
It was very fun to kind of play around with some of these different protocols back then and continue to fine tune them and refine them and see how they've only continued yielding exponentially more amazing results.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
It's already so much fun.
Big, blessed, fun facts, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just absolutely nuts. And we're getting the logo on his right sleeve, which is like the camera behind, like fucking what?
Let's go. I freaking love it.
What? Dude.
As those arms grow, it'll fill out a little bit, you know?
His life, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Unreal. Well, I'm not, yeah. Well, that's not the goal, is not to make it big, but like
No, I'm just kidding.
The core of it's going to be bodybuilding, but we're trying to make him leaner first.
Speaking of, you just showed me that video of
yeah, we'll get into that. Let's kick off the podcast.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Infinite Potential Experience podcast with me and Nick Stoop.
Let's go.
I'm Alex Keller, and today we're going to be talking about some sports-specific training. A lot that we do is working with athletes, and golf is one of the main sports that we work in. I played college golf and have competed in World Long Drive and now work with a lot of the athletes. all the way from the PGA Tour to the World Long Drive Association. And Nick is helping me in terms of programming, mindset, and all that kind of stuff alongside the golf side. And then a lot of this is implemented with our professional hockey and lacrosse and baseball players as well. So we're really excited to talk about some of the training and stuff that goes behind this. And I think a main focus is going to be on golf today.
Yes. Let's kick it off with that video that you were sharing me with, I think his name is Jake, where he was doing, is it Jake Knapp, right?
Jake Knapp.
Yep, where he was doing bodybuilding exercises, that row machine that I know you and I are very familiar with, especially you from the bodybuilding days from a good old Iron Paradises, whether it was Exile or Gold's Gym. But we had a wonderful conversation. I'd love to bring that back up and get your thoughts on that. You were sharing with me kind of where he was, what had happened, and now as he started to implement more weight training, things have started to turn around for him. So dive into all of that.
So with Jake Knapp, he just won the Classic tournament last week at the PGA National Members Club. I guess it was 2 days ago. On Sunday, he finished up, and a video has gone viral around his training because it's a lot different than what we normally see when it comes to PGA Tour training. So it just has him training like a bodybuilder, right? It has him doing rows on a machine that's fixed. It has him doing incline bench press, dumbbell bench press, all this other stuff, where it's just a sigh of relief for me to see him not lunging forward with a medicine ball and twisting and throwing it against the wall, right? He's training for strength and size and muscle and all those sorts of things. I think his direct quote was, "I never want to be in a situation on the golf course or a lie where I don't think that I can handle it physically." And that's beautiful. And I want to get into why this was such a breath of fresh air for me, because I mean, over the last 10 years. Since I started bodybuilding, I was always a golfer in college, and then I always played golf. So I wanted to be good at golf, but I always wanted to develop a physique that I was proud of as well. And then marrying those two things turned out to be really good. And it made me have a very specific outlook on how I see the professionals play at a high level. And seeing a person that's on top of the leaderboard in the PGA or Professional Golf Association has just kind of made me feel better about it, because I see Justin Thomas, Max Homa, all these guys train, they're always showing twisting motions violently with something weighted,
and typically like in that off fixed position that you're never really in as a golfer swinging.
Yeah,
like that lunge, like
that's fine, because they're trying to work on stability and core strength, but they're also twisting how they do it, or they're throwing a medicine ball as hard as they can against the wall. And my biggest thing is during this is they get plenty of that repetition on the course.
Yes.
And you see a lot of injuries by talking to some of these pros. You see a lot of injuries through the way that they train, first of all, but also you see a lot of injuries in the lower back just over time and breakdown.
Yeah.
And it's because they're constantly swinging. They're constantly swinging very hard and twisting their spine while they do it. And these movements don't necessarily build up the things that are protecting your spine. They're building up your obliques, and they're just making you twist more. So now you're working out once a day and you're making that twisting motion. And then you go to the driving range, you hit 100 balls, making that twisting motion. And you play on the course and you're doing another 70 strokes, doing that twisting motion. And the main problem becomes, over time, that's going to break stuff down, and it's not necessarily strengthening or stopping that breakdown over time, or securing the thing that's going to break down over time.
Let's talk about that real quick, because I've noticed the same repetitive injuries with lacrosse and hockey, especially hockey. And lacrosse, you have more of an opportunity to shoot both righty and lefty, whereas like hockey is obviously more fixed, right? So there's so many continued repetitions on one side, and it's more of force generators. And There's never really one counterbalancing that, two working on the absorption of the force. And one of the biggest things that I've seen, we actually one of our one of the girls on our team is now out for the whole year, as I was telling you the other day, where from a forearm injury. And one of the things that I had noticed was like having worked on a lot of forearms with the guided healing technique, part of that with the bicep and the shoulder, is so much of when they're shooting it is with the wrist and throwing it and trying to produce all that force in their arms and not allowing all the other force they can generate with their lower body and their core do the work for them. And it's kind of like same thing where you're just drilling the same thing to get better, yet you've never, one, fixed any compensations, two, you're not addressing the absorption of that, and three, the biggest one, you're not allowing for all the repetitions you've been doing to fully integrate, heal before you're continuing to do it again, whether it's like you mentioned loaded with the medicine ball, then you're doing more force torque oriented swings, then you're doing more fine tune where it's more about placement and positioning for when you're actually out there. And I think one of the biggest things over time that I know we'll discuss a lot more about is being intentional with the amount of repetitions and also being more intentional with allowing rest to play a bigger role in allowing you to continue to get better. Because a lot of times I think it's very easy to get caught up in that mindset of we got to be doing something. If I'm not doing this, I need to now go do this to get better. And then I need to do this to get better. Well, like you mentioned, all of those things are just different stimulus of ways that we're breaking down the body, that the body needs time to heal, recover, integrate, and grow from. That I feel like is most oftentimes maybe not as well addressed or overlooked when it comes to like the nutrition that we were talking about, the way that you eat, as well as like the rest and stuff.
Yeah, so it's really well put. So a lot of things to touch on in there. So the repetition ends up being a problem if the programming in the gym isn't kind of offsetting, or at least preparing the body to be able to take the amount of wear and tear that that type of repetition does. And
Yeah.
a big problem that we see, right, with the hockey and lacrosse, right, because they're training with specific trainers on campus, and then they come to us and we have to fix these problems over the summer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or on golf, right, is they're doing all this stuff while they're playing the sport and practicing the sport by actually doing the sport. For some reason, a lot of trainers aren't able to disconnect in their brain that they shouldn't be doing that exact same motion when they're working with weights. Where I have a complete disconnect when it comes to especially golf, and then a lot of these other motions, is let's make it so that that specific repetition doesn't become a problem later, right? Let's, number one, fix any injuries or problems that you may have because of all the repetition that you've done or whatever's going on, whether it be from past sports and all this other stuff. Nobody focuses on that.
Yes.
So
No.
let's fix those issues. If you don't already have those issues, let's make sure that we're doing the same things that would fix those issues, but making it strong so those problems never happen. And then supporting that thing that usually gives out because of the repetition. So what I'm talking about is the lower back. So why don't we make your glutes, your lower back, your core, your obliques extremely strong through normal motion that doesn't twist the spine, and then work with mobility to make sure that you maintain the movement so you can go and practice that movement over and over again. It reduces injury in a major way.
Yes.
But also makes it so they're that much stronger while they're performing the motion. And then they can go out and do those hundreds of swings a day and they're still getting that motion. They're not forgetting how to swing in the gym because they go and they don't do a golf swing in the gym.
Another good thing to point out too about that, and this is one of the biggest things I see just everywhere, is there's that disconnect when you're out when you're in the gym and the things that you're working on, you want it to have a crossover relation to your sport, yet most oftentimes it's completely overlooked that the mindset the mental and physiological state which you're in the gym versus when you're out on the course, the ice, or the field, whatever it might be, is very different mindsets. And one of the things that we do, right? I remember we went through this with Travis, one of our college soccer athletes, where it was a simple drill. We would have him bring his soccer ball, and I was like, all right, all right, when we're doing certain things, we go through our PAP exercises. I want you to put yourself mentally, visually out there on the field, see the things that we're drilling, but now see you executing that enhancement in the way you want when you're out there, whether that's getting that punt, that kick, that throw to that player. So now we're creating that very intentional association between what we're drilling, whether it's in practice or at the gym or the beast bus or wherever, versus now having that direct crossover into your very specific training and sport. And I think there's a lot of almost mindless training, if you will, where people are just in the gym doing things because other people said it, they should do this, and they are going to get stronger, absolutely. But there's that disconnect that everything that we're just talking about not only bridges, but really takes into consideration in a way that allows that person to not only maximize their performance, but doing it in a way that is fixing, reversing, reducing, and inhibiting other potential injuries or other issues that most people playing those sports experience. And that's something that we make it one of our own missions, to make sure that our athletes are always well prepared and never have to deal with those same things.
Yeah, I mean, every person that I've ever talked to that has played at a high level but didn't make it to the highest level that they wanted, right? Made it pro, but never got to the top of the leaderboard. Played in college, was drafted, but never made it from baseball, from D3 to whatever else. What's always the reason? Somewhere along the line, they got hurt, so they had to take 6 months off, and then they lost 6 months, and then it's in their head that they're scared that they're going to get hurt, and then they end up getting hurt again, all this other stuff. If it becomes a staple of training from hell, let me have you from middle school all the way till you're in the PGA, you know what I mean? Then we can get to a place where we're just healthy and strong, and specifically strong for the sport in some nuances, right? But healthy and strong over time, then it reduces the risk of those things happening from the sport. And now we just have to worry about like the freak accidents that can happen, right? But then it becomes luck and not repetition in your body. And that's something that, I mean, a lot of great trainers do it, but I just don't see it as much on social media or online for golf. As I do for other like athletic sports. Yeah, and we'll get into like specific principles and what we're talking about later. But in this video, and I'm pretty sure I can pull it up because I want everybody to see what we're talking about. Here we go. Let me pause it really quick. This isn't the Joe Rogan podcast. We don't have a Jamie to just pull stuff up and put it on the screen whenever we want to.
Not yet, at least. If there's a Jamie out there listening and you're looking for
yeah,
you let us know.
I'm cool doing it without him for now. But Nick, can you see that?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. So this is the training video that we're talking about. And this is a golfer that just won on the PGA Tour. Right? And he's just going through, he's showing what he would do on a workout program. And the cool thing is, this is very close to how I train. In terms of how like I would exercise and that sort of thing, but it's just normal lifts. Not in one place do you see somebody throwing a ball and twisting it or doing all these like crazy looking things that are putting the body in compromising positions. And he still swings the club very well, and he still generates a ton of power, and he's not training like that in the gym, which is really cool to see. And I find that even taking a step further, and I don't obviously have access to his full program, or even if he has a program, he might just be doing this on his own. Because I saw that 2 years ago, he wasn't making money on tour, and to keep going, he had to be a bouncer. So maybe he just started to put on muscle so he could bounce better. As somebody who put on muscle and then needed a job to fund some stuff that he was doing, I was a bouncer for a while. Muscle comes in handy. But in terms of that stuff, like I train specifically for muscle mass. And then golf is just like it's not an afterthought. I just want to be really good at golf and still be able to play golf for a very long time while maintaining physique that I want. So I have golf principles that I put at the beginning and the end of every single one of my workouts. And then the middle is literally for strength. And that's what I was doing for a long time when I was competing in bodybuilding or when I was in college and playing golf, right? To maintain the flexibility, being able to generate power from the ground, all that kind of stuff. But then I wanted big arms, a big chest, and all this other stuff. And what I found is by having strong lats and triceps, it translates to a golf swing to create more power. By having a strong chest and doing bench press the right way, I'm generating force from the ground to be able to be good at that lift. By having big arms and strong forearms, I'm able to navigate any type of rough that I come against, where I don't have to worry about the club twisting in my hand. Now it's just like, okay, how hard can I execute a swing and what aim point do I need to have? The ball is going to come out. It might not come out as far, but when the PGA is playing, they have like 5-inch rough. The last thing they want is to be hovering over that ball thinking maybe my grip isn't going to be able to handle this swing that I'm putting on it, and the ball can come out right and not straight. And it was beautiful fine because like I was 5 years into this, I was like, oh, this is working really well. And I'm just hitting the ball farther and farther. So now when I used to have like a 7-iron in my hand, now I have a pitching wedge in my hand. So I'm hitting the ball farther. With a club that's easier to handle, the ball's going higher, so it's going to stick on the green better and all that stuff. And it just became a thing. So now I just give this to all of my golfers. And no, we're not training for like a bodybuilding show, and it's not like that intense, right? But it's workouts that are specifically for golf, where we're doing bulletproofing at the beginning on specific days where it makes sense to warm up that way. So legs, we're making sure our knees and our ankles and our feet are bulletproofed to a point where that's not going to be a problem later. Then we go through a leg workout. And then at the end of it, we go through mobility to make sure what we just did makes us be able to be as mobile as we need to be for golf, right? But there's no twisting in there. There's none of this other stuff. It is making sure that we're making all the things strong that we need to be strong to support our lower back, support our knees, and then make us flexible so we are able to generate as much power from the ground as we need to, load into our hips the right way, and that kind of stuff. Same thing for shoulders. We're bulletproofing our shoulders because a lot of shoulder injuries come from the golf swing, and it can. And most people have messed up stuff because most golfers played baseball when they were younger, so they're always fighting through some type of shoulder thing. Is making that so the shoulder injuries go away and never happen again. And then we work through a shoulder or chest day, and then we do mobility to make sure that what we just made tight from doing that shoulder or chest day makes you so you're still mobile. Like I can still touch both of my hands behind my back, and I am a 260-pound guy. That was designed so I can still swing a golf club and bring it back to parallel if I want to. And it's that kind of thought that should go into it rather than like, oh, they need to be able to throw something heavier by twisting and throwing it out the left side because that's going to make them hit the ball farther.
Yeah.
I don't think it will. I don't know if it won't, but I don't think that the risk lines up to the amount of power that it will generate other than doing the things that I'll teach.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, like if I was working with someone who was doing the med balls, I would have them not just do it as part of the training, because if you really wanted to cross over for like the swing, you like do that for a couple reps as part of like the PAP enhancement to get that body used to firing against a heavier load. But then instead of spending so much time and repetition on the med ball, using that to enhance the swing speed, but then taking the club and executing on moving faster and flowing through that range, I think that would be a more useful way. But one of the things I really was excited to kind of talk more about that you alluded to when you were talking about the rough was the difference in your mindset or someone's mindset and their confidence and how they feel when they're in the rough, when, like you mentioned, like if they weren't really, like they haven't really worked out, right? Or they're not really strong throughout their entire body, they might spend more time trying to figure out like, I got to worry about my hand position in the club, like you mentioned, because they don't feel confident in their preparation. They don't feel confident in their strength, their grip strength, for how they can place it. Whereas with all the stuff that you're doing, you feel very confident. You're not second guessing things. You're going in there and be like, all right, the ball's here. This is what I know I need to do. And your confidence just allows you to go in with a plan, see it, and execute it.
We're preparing for the ultimate goal. The gym is disconnected from the course in terms of like, we're preparing you to be able to handle any situation that you could possibly come across.
Yeah.
A lot of my training for golf is both to generate power from the ground, because that just whatever your gear 3 was when you were trying to hit the ball as hard as you possibly could, gear 4 becomes your just fairway finder swing, which some people will understand, but it's the one that you can hit most accurate. But now that's faster because you're generating more power from the ground, which creates more speed. And then by doing these things, it's also making it so somebody can walk 18 holes 4 days in a row while they're recovering, instead of being more tired on Sunday when it really matters and you got to push for that win. And then also, it's just like all these little situations like the rough that we're talking about, right? If you know that you're strong and then you can handle those certain lies, right? Then you can just take a freaking swing at it. And then, but golf's so between your ears that it's like, you can think yourself out of golf way before you can play yourself out of golf. And by thinking, I might not be able to, when you're over top of something, instead of being like, all right, this might not come out as clean as I want it to, but let's take a line where it's not going to go out of bounds. Let's pick a club where if it comes up a little short of that because the rough's thick, that's fine. But we're not worried about it spraying right or you pulling it left. You can still take your swing at it. Then that just becomes a 99% possibility that you're going to be hitting the ball exactly like you said you would, but you're not thinking about, what if I don't get this club through this grass? You know what I mean? You're going to be able to get it through. And most of the time, like, what do they say? Grip the club like a baby bird in your hands. Well, sometimes you can't do that. And if you have a better grip strength, right, and you're going through freaking 5 inches of rough in a PGA tournament, then you can grip it harder and you can hit it harder. And make sure that that isn't just something that's festering in the back of your mind when you're over it. And that's more powerful than anything else, is just not have that second bit of doubt when you're getting over it. Because if you swing thoughts are the worst thing that you can have, right? On the course, you want to not be thinking when you're over the ball. That's the most beautiful place that you can be when you're playing golf.
I love that. And that's it. It's one of the biggest things for any athlete playing and competing at the highest level. You always hear them when they're in the zone, right? Or they're in that flow state where they're so present that, like you said, they're not even in their head. They're just there and they can execute, because now they don't need to think. They don't need to try to prepare. Now it's just observing, seeing, and executing on all the preparation they've put in leading up to those moments.
Yep.
And that level of confidence, I think another thing to even mention too, because you mentioned like, especially with when you have back-to-back days of like 18 holes, that's a lot back to back to back. It's a lot of time on your feet, but it's also a lot of time in here where you're trying to see, okay, based on how I'm starting, how does it need to look based on other people? And when you have those constant doubts in your mind, or these fears or what if scenarios, that is draining your energy mentally and physically, and it's making you less present when you're out there.
Yeah. I just had this conversation. One second. I'm Googling. Yeah. Because this is going to come out. I wanted to make sure I had the exact number. So what I was talking about with my PGA player that we're starting to ramp up for this year in preparation for a very long season next year, right? Is getting him to a place where he's not more tired on Sunday than Thursday, because you're your body, you don't want your body to be the thing that is draining energy from your thought process. And if you feel more exhausted from walking 18 holes a day, which is a lot, right? Walking 18 holes a day, by Sunday, when you could possibly be going for the win in a tournament, but now your body's not cooperating how you want to be, and you're not be able to generate as much power from the ground. Let's work through our daily training to make it so we're putting ourselves in a place to be more recovered or just as recovered on Thursday as Sunday by the amount of work that we put, because the body adapts. So if you put your body through that stuff on a daily basis, right, it gets used to it. The best thing I can say is I do 10 minutes of lunges a day. My legs never get sore. When I started, I could barely walk after I started, right? The body just adapts. But in golf, it's just like playing chess, right? You're trying to think your way around a course just as much as you are playing a sport, right? But this is thinking your way around a sport for 4 hours straight a day, where you have to keep your mind just as sharp on hole 1 as it is on hole 18. And the amount of calories that your brain burns when you're running at a high rate just thinking, this is what I was looking up. Chess players that are playing at a high level can burn 6,000 calories a day just sitting down thinking, playing chess.
And I think that's
6,000. I burn like 3,500 calories a day, and I'm a pretty active person, right? But I'm not sitting down and doing chess. It's because of exercise and the way that my metabolism runs. But your brain burns just as many calories as your body does. And in golf, you're doing that twofold, because you're getting all these steps in, and you're walking on this terrain, and then you have to think about every single shot and every outcome of every shot, and then what you're going to do on the next shot from there. And it's almost like playing chess while you're doing it, or that's how it should be at a high level, right? You
Yeah.
can be a pretty bad golfer and know how to think your way around a golf course and shoot good scores still.
I think there's so much to be said around the mental energy utilization. I think no one ever really discusses that, talks about it, or takes that into consideration when it comes to recovery or fueling. Like, we might be fueling the brain with obviously the nutrients we're consuming, but we don't ever think about just how much energy the brain is also using in various times, whether it might be, closer to that game time or around the match. You're using more mental energy, mentally visualizing, preparing, playing through scenarios so that you're confident and ready. And even honestly, like the stressors of everyday life. And if for those that can't necessarily disassociate from those stressors, it literally weighs on them, because the subconscious mind is constantly trying to solve these problems that are in our thinking brain. So even though it might not be at the forefront of our brain, it is still a drain. It is still consuming energy. It's a question mark. Anything that's a question mark, the brain wants to figure out. If we don't figure it out in that moment, and we don't say we're going to disconnect from this and it'll come back later, we're like, nah, we're just going to repress this, push this down, and ignore it. It's still running. It's still pulling energy. I think that was a great that was a great thing you pulled up there in regards to like the chess, and how much energy is actually being used with the thinking brain in a sport, if you will, that doesn't seem like physically demanding, right? Because you're just sitting there moving pieces on a board, but it's such a great awareness to see. Oh, just because they're not physically expending the same amount of energy doesn't mean the total energy expenditure isn't high, and also needs to be addressed for recovery purposes. Because if you think about it, right, most from the nutritional side of things, right, when you're getting plans or programs from other people, it's more around just your body weight and just the physical output, but there's no thought around the mental energy input output and how that actually impacts the overall caloric intake and expenditure, and how that impacts your ability to recover day after day, especially when you're in season or in those very big tournaments where you're playing back to back to back to back, whether it's back to back each day. You have multiple games in a day. That is mentally and physically draining. I think that's
Yeah,
a great
that's what
point.
I'm saying. But they're trying to battle both of these things. When if you prepare the right way, you can take the physical out of it completely. And now it's just the
Yeah.
mental test that you're going through while you're on the course.
And
And
even the mental side of things, there's ways that we can approach this in how with the mental training, you're teaching your brain to look for the opportunities and the possibilities that are there, and it doesn't waste time and energy trying to process, and it'll start to pick up on what to do much more efficiently, so your thinking processes become shorter, quicker. You come with the solution. Energy saved, energy conserved is energy being able to deliver into that swing, into that sport or whatever.
exactly. And then also talking on the diet side of things, right, is when you're now recovering in a way where you're not, if you figure out the diet on the out of this too, which is another thing that I'm going to be working on with these guys, is like trying to eat in a way where it's more fueling the being used to it in a state where you're working out on like lower carbs per se, right? Now we can run on ketosis in some of these situations, which is a lot cleaner energy where we're not constantly trying to refeed glycogen to keep insulin at a certain level so we're feeling good and not having any crashes or mental fog or any of this other stuff. And this is something I'm really excited to test out because, right, if we can get to a place where we're eating in a way that's getting you protein, good, healthy, clean fat sources. Your body's running off of those and knows how to use them for energy, not in ketosis, but your body's primed to use those for energy. And then you can kind of fuel up at nighttime off of carbs, kind of how I do with the bodybuilding coaching and all this other stuff. Then all day we can have this super clean energy where your body's running off of something and your brain's running off of something that it works better on, which is ketones. And when you're going through this, then you don't have the spikes and crashes. But what
Yeah.
most people are worried about is like you see Tiger Woods, he's eating a banana on every other hole because he's trying to keep these carbs coming in because his brain and his body's burning it off so much. But what do we have? Just like unlimited amounts of fat. So like we're never worried about it. You don't have to like
Yeah.
food's taken out of the equation, right? Just
How
eat
about
the that you normally eat.
yeah?
And keep going through your day, and then it's just about golf. It's not about, oh, I need a bar right now because I'm
Yeah.
feeling my
Well, let's talk about what you just said right there, right? Like, ooh, I'm mid game, mid whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, now I need to refeed, or I need this, or I'm feeling hungry. You're immediately taken away from being in the moment and executing. So you have mental energy going that way, and it takes energy to digest. It takes resources away from performance when you have to ingest, digest, and redistribute.
yeah.
So that constant, I love what you were saying in terms of like being able to get to a state where your body can utilize both fuel sources efficiently. You don't necessarily need to be in ketosis to be able to use fat. I think that's one of the biggest common misconceptions that have come out from the keto diet era, if you
Takes
will.
5 days to get into ketosis. No, your body can be more predisposed to run off of fat for energy if you do that sort of thing on a daily basis. And this is something that I've learned with the way that I diet with the metabolic fast track is, right, I still eat a lot of carbs, but it's from like low glycemic vegetables and things like that during the day. And then healthy fat sources from meats and avocados, cashews, and those sorts of things. And my body feels clean, but like I don't get that. I eat my meal at noon. I don't get that crash at 2 o'clock that most people get when they go out and they have a sandwich at lunch or whatever, because your blood sugar spikes and then it crashes.
Yep.
And I'll have the carbs at nighttime. So my body still gets carbs every day, but I usually have in some sort of like sugary fruit or maybe ice cream if I feel like it or whatever else. And then I get that insulin spike and then I sleep really good because I get that 2 o'clock crash right before I'm supposed to go to bed. And I go to sleep and I repeat the cycle. But then I usually exercise in the morning, but I'm using the glycogen that I ate the night before because glycogen just doesn't go away. You don't need to eat it right before you do something, right? It gets stored. So now from nighttime to when you're playing in the morning, you can use that glycogen for fuel. And when that burns off, There's nothing else for your body to run off of but ketones. And if you do this over a long sustained period of time, so this isn't something that I'd be like, oh, you have a golf tournament for the first time, let's try this weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, no, once your body gets used to making that change on a daily basis, and we figure out how to do this in a version that makes you feel the best, right? Then we can emulate that and just keep living the way that we're living that makes us feel good on the weekend. And then just eat at the same times, do all this stuff, but it's not based off of now I have to eat every 2 holes or I need this. It's going to be more about hydrating would be the one thing that I would think about, right? While you're on the course, but that's just drinking water.
Exactly. So, being more intuitive too, right? Because it teaches you to be intuitive, like, oh, checking in with yourself, like, damn, I'm feeling really good. I don't need that bar or that extra fuel source. Like I'm in the zone. I'm feeling great. I don't need to eat just because I have to based on.
Yeah. And then you don't have to be fasting to do this. You can take the 2 meals and split them up into four meals over the course of the day. And that might be what we do because tea times are going to be morning and nighttime.
Yeah.
But it's taking all these things and maybe that doesn't work for him. And then we use carbs. But in a sense, like this has worked with a lot of golfers. So and he's very excited to try it. And this works with me. I love playing golf fasted because I feel like I can think better around the course. And I'm prepared enough that I don't need to squeeze 10 extra yards out because my fairway finder is still 30 yards past everybody else because of the way that I train. It's a living, what'd you say in the last episode, living in a state of readiness. You're always in a state of readiness.
Amen.
So it's like, let's live the whole year. Let's not change anything on the week of. Let's practice like we're playing. Let's live every day like we're playing. And then let's work out to make sure that we're in a place that you can just be the best version of yourself when you're playing, not have to worry about anything but golf. Yeah. We always bring up the equation, right? What do we want at the end and how do we want it to look? Well, now we have every piece of it. We have diet, training, and I guess endurance or recovery all figured out in the easiest way possible, because now it's just a habit that we've created over the course of an entire year. And then it doesn't really have to change over the weekends. You're just always in that place. The only thing that I might say is we'll probably still have people do the cheat meals over the weekends if they want to, or maybe we'll do it with golfers on Mondays and Tuesdays because that's after the tournament's over. And we're just working on it that way, but who knows? But it's like, and everybody will be completely different, which is the cool part too. It's like figuring out these ideas and then using a way to make it perfect for them. So they feel good. But figuring out that equation, and we have just like the amazing building blocks of it already. And then it's just going to take minor tweaks to fix everybody and have like a perfect program around what they want.
That's honestly like for me and myself, it's one of the most fun pieces is taking what we build and further customizing it to that individual's lifestyle and experience. And like, how can we help make this our foundation, your experience? How can we help make this yours for yourself so you can take ownership in it and experience it the way that you want? That's our mission and vision for everyone. I freaking love it.
Yeah. I don't know. And there's nothing I find more rewarding than putting together like a perfect program.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like every year I come out with a new perfect program because if you don't evolve, you're an idiot. But like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like nothing works forever and it can always be better.
Yeah.
Or stuff works forever, but it can always be better. So well, like,
what's that? There's a quote that says like, you never walk into the same river twice, for he who walks in the first time is not the same person who walks in the second, right? Mm-hmm. The only constant is change. It's evolution. It is growth or death. It's the two avenues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The good thing about a good program, right, is change will always happen, even if you're doing the same exercises and stuff all the time. This is where a lot of BS in the fitness industry can come in too, right? Is because people constantly want to change what they're doing. But I've done the same workouts for before I switched to 100% bands. I was doing the same workouts for the part like my chest, my arms, like the things that were the best on my physique.
Yeah.
Did them the same ones for probably 8 years straight. Yeah. But they're still not the same.
Yeah.
because I got stronger over the 8 years. So I was constantly upping my weight on a weekly basis or trying to change rep ranges, but the movements all kind of stayed the same because I found that they worked with my body the best. It might not work for somebody else's body the best, but damn right, when I find that thing that's perfect, why just to make you feel a little bit more like you're shocking the body to
Right?
change it
Yeah.
up? I'm going to be like, no, we're going to keep it the same.
Like your
You
body's
have a coach that changes something on a weekly basis.
was like,
Um,
let's talk about that real quick because I feel that I did my same program I did every year in college. I did the same one for 3 years when I started that program, 4 years actually.
mhm.
Um, and I mean, if it works, it works, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's ways you could take the same thing and get more out of it in different ways. And uh, it's one of the things too is like the purpose of the muscle confusion for someone maybe that's doing bodybuilding where you get to that's
It's different.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that is your sport and you lifting is you playing, if you will. So you can have fun, get creative, do different things. But from like we have the same foundational lifts that I've had since I was working out training and ever since training athletes for going on what 15 plus years now because those exercises frickin' work incredibly well. Why change them?
And we change sometimes, right? But it's
Yeah.
the foundational movement isn't changing a lot. So like if we're doing bench press, sometimes we'll do single arm bench press because we're looking at number one, generating power from the ground, getting a little bit more core stability out of it and all this other stuff. But the movement doesn't really change. I'm
Yeah.
not going to have people out here doing like one arm push-ups with clapping behind your back just to make them impressed about how I can do it, right? It's going to be the best workout programs in the world are getting the most out of foundational lifts like squats, lunges, bench, um, rows, deadlifts, and all those sorts of things um, in the safest way possible. So you can keep doing them day in and day out for years because progressive overload is the one thing that's not a myth.
Yeah.
It's take a number and get better at it in some fashion over the course of time, and that will make you move farther. And if you're trying to get bigger, get heavier or get more reps in from week to week, and those are good things to focus on. And then if we're trying to have, I mean, actually, no, those are the two things for any goal that you have. And then around your diet is how you'll implement if you're putting on more muscle, if you're just doing it for more athletic reasons, right? You know what I mean?
You could take the same exercise and experience it in variably as many different ways as you want, especially mentally. Like you can get as creative with it as you want. And to give you an example, what I used to love doing when I was training and playing lacrosse, when I was benching, I would visualize like my opponent, specifically the kid I was going to be playing that game. And my mind was like, all right, this set, I am crushing all of these reps. I'm like, if I don't crush all these reps, that means he's getting topside on me. I'm like, F that. That's not happening. Not today, not ever. And then I'm like, I'm seeing him. And while I'm benching, all I'm seeing is me out on the field, laying him out, messing him up. And I have to just like, I'm like, dang, like I have so much fun when I'm lifting that way. Or like sprinting and running is probably one of the least enjoyed by most people. And one of the things I would always say is like, let's get intentional with running. I used to in college, right? Every pregame practice, we would end every pregame practice with one long full field sprint. And it was actually one that everybody would get super excited and pumped for. We would all line up on the line, cheering, screaming, yelling, because we knew at the end of that, the very next time we stepped on that field, we were kicking someone's ass. It was someone else's butt that we got to be wiping up and down the field with. It was someone else that got to be the victim that next day. And I used to think, I'm doing this, I'm visualizing myself getting this ground ball, going all the way down, feeding the point man, feeding down low or scoring. I would get intentional with that. And I would have so much fun. I would forget that, oh, guess what? Coach said line up, we're doing a sprint. Nah, I'm like, I'm gonna get better now. If we're doing this, we're doing this, and we're getting better. We're gonna make it fun. And I think that's one of the things that, that mental creativity allows for you to take the same things that you get to do and you can do and apply every day, day in and day out, and finding new ways that you can experience it, make it yours, make it your own, make it fun, and make it fitting for you. All
Yeah.
punting gains over here, baby.
Yeah. So yeah, with that. So with our athletes and you, like lacrosse, hockey, all that kind of stuff, that definitely aligns, right? It's more of like a violent, like, you know what I mean? Golf's a little bit different, where you almost want to detach your mind from a lot of this stuff because you're just playing yourself.
Yeah.
It is a sport against you. Like, yes, there's other people on the leaderboard, but they're not doing anything to you to make you play worse, and you can't do anything to them to make them play worse other than playing really good, and then that gets in their head.
Yeah.
So a lot of the golf programming, right? Well, this is a beautiful thing about athletes is if you're training for a specific thing, then you should be thinking about the thing that you're getting better at the whole time. So a lot of the movements, right, in terms of like squats for golf, the place where you generate the most power is the very top part of that squat motion, right? That's where it translates the most to the golf swing. So like if you're thinking of that, and I put that into my players' minds as much as I possibly can when I'm talking to them on our weekly calls, and it's like, that's what this does. And that's in hopes that they're thinking about the golf swing while they're doing these motions and knowing that that's the part where they really need to explode through the movement. But also a lot of what I do with the lunges and things like that is trying to make it as mind numbing and not mind numbing, mindless as possible, right? Doing something so many times over and over again that it is second nature for them to generate power from the ground. So now they don't know why their swing's getting faster. It's just the fact that their body is just better at creating power from the ground. And that is another thing that's just like very important in terms of like the golf side, because now they're just like, oh, I feel like my swing's faster, but I feel like I'm swinging in first gear, right? Like it's my fairway finder.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's by design. And we don't need to talk about why it's happening. Just keep doing the things that you're doing on a daily basis, and it's going to keep happening. And that's really important. And that's one thing where golf is very different from a lot of other sports. It's literally you versus you and how long you can keep yourself in it mentally to keep it going, right? And if everything aligns and you're mental and you're hitting the ball and the breaks are going your way because some of it's kind of out of your control at some points, right? It's breaks going your way, but also in bad breaks, you're keeping your head in it. And all those things kind of align in the right way. That's when you win.
Yeah.
And in a training program, we should be setting it up in a way to give every single tool to you that now it just comes down to you, the ball, and the club in your hand, and that's all that matters. You've done everything that you could possibly do up to this day to just be like, I'm going to win. There's nothing else than the golf game, right? I'm not going to be tired on Sunday. I'm not going to be tired on the course or mentally fogged out or feel like I'm just mentally drained by 18 or any of that other stuff. We've done the work in the diet, the training, and the preparation that now it's literally just let's go play some good golf.
Yeah.
And it's like that for everybody. And what you were just saying is preparing in that aggressive way while you're lifting for those other sports is very important too, because you need to be in that mental place during those. You can't just be like nonchalant and be like, okay, everything's detached mentally from this, because it's very different, right? You have me and you need to go out and get that person. But
it's finding ways you can be mindful with how you are training, your experience with it. And I think it's so cool kind of talking about the different types of mental experiences and the mindsets. But really, the biggest one that is invariable is, what you had mentioned. Readiness is a state when everything that we're doing, right? Everything that we're providing for you as an athlete in the program to prepare you mentally, physically, with the nutrition and everything, right? It's so that when you get out there on the course or on the ice or the field for that game day, right? It's no longer about what I need to do to be ready. Now I am ready, and viewing that as the opportunity to see all of the hard work you've been putting into yourself. Now you get to find out where that new baseline and benchmark is. You get to see all of your hard work play out. You get to experience that new version of yourself you've been working towards.
Nothing is ever owed to you. And if you don't truly feel that you deserve it in your heart, it won't happen.
Amen.
Leave,
Amen.
leave 0 stones unturned. So when it comes to that day, you know that you deserve it, and then it's going to happen. That's if you slack off in any area and don't feel like you did your best to get to a certain point, then there might be that slight hint of a doubt in your mind that maybe you don't deserve to get what's coming to you. Right? But if you do everything to lead up and prepare, and you go into the day knowing that you've checked every single box that you needed to check to get to your goal, then in your heart of hearts, you know that you deserve it, and you're going to be able to execute on what you want to do because of that.
Amen. I love that. Stamp that home. LFG, baby.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We're going to have a lot of the athletes that me and Nick work with, or Nick and I work with, in the golf world come on more, and then we'll get into more specific what I'm doing with each one of them and what Nick's doing with each one of them to really drive the things that we talked about today home, right? Specific training principles, all that kind of stuff. We wanted to use today as kind of an intro to it, and the real thought that's been put behind what we do with the athletes and how I train personally for it, because you know what? I'm using the stuff that I'm putting out there because, I mean, if you don't use what you make, then it's just, I mean, it's just not, I mean, it would mean I didn't believe in it. Right. So
yeah.
I'm going to try and use this stuff to compete myself in World Long Drive this year. But the goal that's even more important to that is get back to scratch golf. So I'm using this. We have a PGA Tour professional using this. We have 5 World Long Drive competitors using this, 1 former Scottish national using this, and then countless weekend warriors that are using this to get more speed and get better. And it's just going to keep growing. So I want to bring as many of these people onto the podcast as possible and just kind of talk about their experience, and number one, their experience and their life story, but then also talk about their experience with training and how it's different than what they've normally gotten in the golf industry and why they love it so much. So I think that's going to be kind of the end of this. And then we're going to have so many more athletes. We're going to do it for hockey. We're going to do it for lacrosse. We're going to do it for all that stuff, because one of the main things we want to do is just get it out there and give as much free content and context to you guys about these trainings as we can. So, Nick, you want to add anything before we kind of sign off here and wait for the next one?
All I can say is I am infinitely excited. Alex and I have so many amazing things lined up, prepared, and waiting to just share with all of you. And all I'm going to say is we cannot wait to dive in further next time. LFG, baby. Let's go and let's grow.
LFG.